afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Call the meeting of the Liberty County Board of Commissioners to order. Mr. Brown, has the meeting been properly advertised? Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to everyone who's in our audience. Good to see you. Good afternoon to those persons who will be watching us on our live streaming. Happy to have you also in our audience. This is our mid-month meeting, and the agenda has been prepared. We'll follow it as it is printed. At this time, we will have our prayer and pledge of allegiance. We're going to ask Mr. Bill Mosley, Assistant County Administrator, to lead us in our prayer and pledge. Please stand for the pledge, the prayer followed by the pledge.
Let us pray. Father, we are so thankful for your bountiful blessings that you bestow upon us on a daily basis. And we ask, Father God, for guidance and foresight and insight tonight as we deliberate on the business of this community. We continue to uplift those who are going through the COVID-19 crisis. And we thank you for what you've done in terms of staying the crisis for us. We pray for the Ukrainians and those who are going through war in that war-torn nation. This we thank you for in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. I failed to mention that Commissioner Jones has touched bases with us. He's at work. He won't be able to make it, but he'll be catching up with the meeting via live stream. Mr. Brown, I'm told there are some service awards we have to be presented today. Is that right? Yeah.
Very dedicated employees that have been with us a long time. I'm going to say they're old employees. They're not. But yes, we do. They're 25 employees.
Okay. Commissioners, let's go down and greet our retirees and that 25 years?
25 years. I can't believe anybody worked for Joey 25 years. Do you? You? I did.
So, Mr. Chairman, these folks have been with the county for continuous service for 25 years. I'm going to start off, I won't start in alphabetical order. I'm going to start off with the ladies first. And the first person on here is Ms. Rochelle Martin of the Liberty County Tax Commissioner's Office.
Yes, sir. 1, 2, 3.
$25 years. Yes, sir. These are all 25 years.
And I'm told that while Commissioner Jones has been out, she's been doing a stellar job in that office. We're proud of the work that she's doing.
Thank you.
The next person on here works for the Clerk of Courts, and she is a very dedicated employee, and that's Miss Annette Richardson. Now we'll go to those old guys that we got. There's two of those. They actually, on here, they're separated by division, but they're both in Public Works. And the first one is Mr. Nathan Howard. We know him as Mike Howard. Mike's down there at the solid waste department. He keeps Johnny's shot going down there. And the last one, and I ask, I couldn't do without picking on him. So I asked, why in the world? This must be a ring or something for a swinger.
Oh, it's about to shot.
The box is different there. Maybe it is, Commissioner Stevens. And that's your Public Works Director, Mr. Clinton Wells. He's been here 25 years. I know he likes pictures and stuff. You might want him to give a speech or something, Mr. Chairman. I don't know. So we'll do an interview with him. We'll Facebook him live sometime.
I know that box won't hold the money Brown promised me.
No, it is not.
Appreciate you, buddy.
I need the rest of my money, Brown.
Show me the money. Please, yes. 25 years for those folks.
Yes, yes, break that up. Oh, that is a great picture, great picture. Everybody cheese on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. One more time. All right.
You didn't tell him he had to show back up for work tomorrow, did you? Yes, sir.
I might have to recount mine.
Okay. All right, sir. All right, final agenda, departmental reports, engineer, Mr. Trent Long.
Good evening. Everybody should have a copy of your status report. I'll try to hit a few things, and looks like you got me for 2 agenda items tonight, so hopefully we'll go fast through them. First thing, 2 things on the agenda, on my report. Everybody should have a copy of the intersection improvements we're looking at Barrington Ferry Road, 17 Lewis Fraser, and then at State Route 119 and Barrington Ferry Road, known as Crossroads. Kind of trying to work those out a little bit and get those going a little bit ahead of our US 84 connector before it starts coming online. We skip back down to the pavement marking package. That is out on the streets now. The bid's open on April 12th here in this room. We'll move on down to the Middle Park Recreation improvements. We had delayed the start date until March 7th, and because we were worried that the materials delivery was going to take a long time, and March 7th is come and gone, and the materials are still not here. They are on order, and they have been ordered, so they're just waiting for those so they can get started, and they'll be back out there. They think they may be out there some next week, putting up some silt fence, because they think that the material is close to being here. Palm Drive and Point South Drive, they pretty much are now finished. A couple of manhole rings, risers we want to rise to, there's like a little bump that's about this much where the manholes are. Can't seem to get the manhole risers, so those have been ordered for quite some while. So, but as soon as we get them, they'll throw them in there, and that bounce should go away a little bit. Other than that, I'll open it up for questions or whatever you may have.
I have one, Trent. Trent, have you checked with my guys out there at Public Works and see if they may have some that you can?
I did not, because, you know, we're supposed to be purchasing these.
Yeah, but call Robert Norby if.
Call Norby?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got his number?
I do.
Yeah.
Got him on speed dial.
Give him a call.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
One thing I did want to say, on Palm Drive, you know, they were almost 60 days over on their contract, so we've been holding liquidated damages. We intended to let them do some speed humps for you on Elm Drive, but because of them being over, we decided to go with a different contractor to do that. So looks like it's probably going to be Ellis Wood doing those for you. So we're going to try to hit your speed humps with Ellis Wood and for Max. He's got a couple he wanted out on Limerick Road. So when I have all that information, I'll disseminate it to you and to Joey. That way we get them to do it and get everything done, but.
And expedite it.
Yeah, if we had tried to add that as a change order to,
Trust me,
it would have caused us a bunch of issues.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I had not forgotten about it.
Right.
All right, I'm sorry.
It's all right. What's Commissioner Stevens?
On Miller Park, and Mr. Brown, since the date has changed, will we go back and reset the start date, or will we leave it as it is?
But we'll leave it as it is for right now. And when we get to the end of the job, we can evaluate, these days that we have or don't have, what rain days they have and what happens from here going forward. But yes, sir, no, we leave it the same for right now.
Okay. Trade Hill, where were we at with Trade Hill?
Yes, sir. Waiting on materials right now.
Waiting on material.
Waiting on materials.
Okay.
And actually, we have some construction stakes out there. So getting ready for Clinton to clear and grub. I think my survey guys probably would have liked that he was clearing while they were there, because it's pretty thick.
All right. And we're gonna bring Bill Carter Road back up a couple of months from now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Trying to let things kind of calm down again, and
Okay.
I hadn't found any additional money from DOT yet, but still looking.
Maybe we need to ride up to Atlanta.
Maybe. That might work. All right, that's all I have for my regular meeting.
And this is what, 17
Yes, sir.
and,
Yeah, one of them is, the one that has 3 legs on it is 17 and Lewis Fraser and Barrington Ferry. And then the one that has 4 legs on it is Crossroads, 119 and Barrington Ferry. All right, if you want me to, I can move right on into the Gumbranch Solid Waste Convenience Center if you like, Mr. Chairman.
No, if you will, just talk just a minute about the 3-leg.
Okay.
Is that roundabout?
You want me to throw them up?
Roundabout?
Oh, we have it electronically?
Okay.
Audience can see it, good.
I was ready for you.
All righty.
I'll talk a little loud so I can talk. That's all I can. This is Highway 17 through here. This is Barrington Ferry Road where it comes through. This is Lewis Fraser, and this is the site where the gazebo is. The gazebo will get moved over almost where the road is now. And that's how it's not going to look exactly that way, but that's the real concept. It'll probably end up being a little bit bigger circle, and there will be extra lane to kind of make it 17 through a little faster. Now, one thing these things do is they do slow the traffic down on 17. So this is that one. You want to go to 119?
Trent, where will the gazebo go at? Go back to that one. Right.
How safe is that, man?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna just make a comment about those gazebos. If they are not going to be maintained better than what they are now, we don't need them.
Yeah.
They are a disgrace to the county.
I hadn't even noticed that one.
It's up in the woods.
I don't know, it gets used.
Yeah, you're right.
Does it even get used?
Yeah.
If it don't,
I guess the
I'll
question,
take
yeah,
'em down.
that's a good question, is does it get used? Does it serve its purpose? Yeah. All right. Yes, sir. I'm gonna go on a field trip.
So this is the new convenience store that's going, this is the church, the Head Start is over here and up here. So we'll have some right-of-way acquisition that we have to do on the corners, but basically that's how that looks.
Now, on that, Trent, that new development that's right on the corner, is that configured into this
Yes, sir. You can see the line work from there.
right there? Okay, now what about that big oak tree by First Sign?
I'm worried about the big over here.
I am too.
I have not got it, my survey crews yet, but we are gonna shoot it. And, my biggest concern is this gonna be within the clear zone, and whether DOT is gonna let me keep it or not, is one of my issues.
Mr. Chairman, Trent, are we going to have those lit? I mean, are they going to have lighting? Okay.
There'll be I don't have them shown on here, but there are at least 4 lights on
Each leg of it? Okay.
How much have we been in conversation with the churches about?
Not a lot yet, and I was trying to finish up my concept design before we start talking.
Okay, then I think the best plan, Commissioner Stevens, is to, at whatever point you're ready, let's arrange a meeting with the churches, so that they'll know firsthand from us, you know, what's coming. So the only right of way, so the First African, it won't be affected, that's on church on the,
On the left. Right.
Right there.
a little bit up there too? Okay, and from First Zion, you say where the oak tree is, yeah. How about the Head Start area, no?
Yeah, we'll be.
All, for everybody,
You see-
okay,
I don't know if you can see the yellow line. That's the right-of-way line.
yeah.
Isn't it,
See several places.
Let's just do a mini town hall then with those,
now Trent, also there's a gas, isn't there a gas system right across the street from First AB? On the Barrington Ferry side?
Yeah, there are some gas lines. Oh, you're talking about the petroleum?
Yeah, okay,
What he's doing here?
right,
Yes, sir, I don't think it's in our way there.
okay.
okay. Let's be proactive and sit down and chat with those people about what's coming.
Chairman, I'll go ahead and schedule a meeting and let
Okay.
you and Trent know about it, and we'll go down there and see if we can talk to them.
Especially when you talk about taking out 100-year-old oak trees.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that you're
Every
talking
corner.
about,
There's a church on it.
when I said that I was trying to get through my concept design before I started talking to everybody, it's really code that, hey, I need to get this kind of blessed by DOT before I.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Okay. Okay, all right. Yeah, because I'd rather not have to change my story. Yeah, okay.
Well, let me ask a question there, Trent. Will that circle, will it be the same distance that the one is at 196 and 301? I mean, are those pretty much the same?
Well, each one, you know, you have different dimensions that you use in different sites and different speeds and what you're trying to accomplish. So these are specific distances within the guidelines that DOT provides. So for the application.
Well, I mean, either way, you're gonna have log trucks going and coming, so, and I mean, that's what you've got. That's a state route also, actually a US highway, 301 is, so,
That's right. It's designed to pass a W67 truck, which is the really long, that's the biggest legal truck. So it's designed to pass. And stay on the asphalt the whole way around. So, and the other thing that you can't see, you also have this apron around the outside edge.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truck apron. So if the truck driver doesn't drive it just right, and his rear end comes up on him, then his rear end can come up on him. It's really thick concrete on the inside. Usually we do that in like a red concrete that's got a brick texture or something on it, so it looks good, and it also makes a noise when you're driving over it.
we don't have one around here, do we? I mean, besides the one right downtown?
Yeah, and it's not gonna be anything like this.
I hope not.
Right, that's what I'm asking. I mean, right now, we don't have any. So
No.
I was just trying to get some idea, have we, something to go by. That's the reason why I was asking about the one up there in 301.
What is that, 301?
Yeah, but I don't have no business up there. I'm elected over here. That's the reason why I'm,
Big one.
Bryan County have a couple of them.
Yeah. Bill fast.
However, radiuses and sizes and applications are different.
It's one at 144 too, isn't it? Yeah.
144.
Yeah, they
has
just
one
finished
down
that one.
Almost in the bottom.
95.
All right.
It's getting nowadays that you can hardly drive anywhere without having to go through roundabouts.
Somewhere, yeah.
yeah.
What's the time expectation for DOT to do their assessment? Just trying to get an idea.
Well, it's gonna be, we have a little bit before we can get to DOT.
Okay.
DOT kind of puts you through the ringer going through the
Okay, okay.
I'd be afraid to give you a timeline right now.
Will it,
It's gonna be more years before we get to where we're like 100% where we need to go. So it's a lengthy process.
okay.
GDOT outsources review on that outside firm.
Okay.
Contract with, it does.
So we'll have caution lights before you get there to
Yeah, there's signage that goes along with it. So
alert you that they're,
generally, no, there's usually not caution lights or flashing lights, like, because there's a yellow flashing light there now. So you won't have those, but what you will have is the lighted intersection, and you've got signs, and there are departures, and like these little islands that you see right here will probably be a little bit longer when we're all said and done. And so it'll make the traffic do a little different. So, but most of them do not have like.
And
caution signs.
Glenville doesn't have lights.
well, I was like Commissioner Stevens, I thought that there was a larger gas line that went along through there and actually goes back,
Yes, there is, you talking about?
talking about a high pressure.
There's a gas line or something right in front of, First AB.
There's a gas line, it'll be underneath, and we'll have to do some utility coordination on that.
Mr. Brown, give me I hope I didn't tell some people wrong today. I was under the impression that in the year 2024, there will be some activity on the bypass.
On the bypass.
Yes, sir.
It is still scheduled for 2020.
Okay, so I'm trying to see if all this is going to kind of work together, coordinate together.
We actually did the ice survey on this about a year ago now, and then went for a preliminary meeting with GDOT, and that's when they said, hey, look, here's what you're gonna need to be doing. So we go back, do a redesign, we're gonna resubmit the ice for review, which is a time limit he takes. We really wanted these in place prior to that, and there's a chance we could.
Could?
There's a
Okay,
chance we still could.
okay. It's much smaller project than doing the bypass, so, okay. All right. Okay. All right. All right,
Okay.
thank you. And Trent's working on the Walthamville piece? Yeah. Looking at me like, huh?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was, my mind was already going to the next item on the agenda.
I was like, for us, as much as we can to coordinate all these so that, they all come together. Yeah. We can have one big ribbon cutting kind of thing.
Well, everybody's gonna be busy.
Yes,
Say
sir.
that.
And disrupted.
Yes, sir. This will be disruptive. It will be very disruptive. Ready for me to move?
Yes,
to
sir.
The Gumbranch Solid Waste Convenience Center?
If you will, sir.
We did take bids for the Solid Waste Convenience Center on March 8th. We got two bids. The lowest bid was Taylor's Creek Construction. They had a bid of $750,000 even. Our budget, we were a little over $810,000 total budget on that. Our construction portion of our budget was within $8,000 of their price. So I felt like our budget was pretty good. So what we'd like to do is recommend that we go with Taylor's Creek Construction for $750,000 plus a 10% contingency. Before you make the motion, I do want to make one note for the record. The contractor was concerned because there was such a difference between his bid and the bid from E&D Contracting Services.
Yep.
We get, E&D does a lot of our, they do bid a lot of our jobs. And here for Liberty County and different jurisdictions, and most of the time they're either the highest or either they lowball it and get the job. They're hardly ever in betweens, and they broker most of these jobs, so a lot of these things are not their own people doing it. So them to have a high price is not surprising to me. The fact that he came in within $8,000 of our budget, and we had updated our budget before we put it out to bid, made me feel pretty good that we were in the right ballpark. And I feel good about Taylor's Creek being able to construct this project for that amount.
Was Taylor's Creek concerned that they were underbidding or that perhaps we were being
Oh, no, sir, he's not.
hammed by, hate to use that word, but has concerns about the pricing of the other company?
Well, they're not concerned about the pricing of the other company. Their bonding company is the one that becomes concerned.
Okay.
Because that's the first question. The bonding company says, did you underbid it? Why is the next one so
Yeah,
high?
so yeah.
So, you know, we usually, last time we had to correspond with their bonding company to say, no, their price is right in line.
Okay.
So, you know, bonding companies are being a little bit more persnickety the last year or so as far as spreads between prices and what people are doing.
Makes sense.
So we're having talked to the bonding companies early on far more than we have in the 30-plus years I've been doing this ever.
Yeah.
There's no doubt he did come in under. But that E and D, where are they out of?
They have an office in Savannah,
Savannah?
but they also picked up $10 million worth of work last month, too. A couple of bridges and some big DOT stuff.
Okay. On the convenience center, will it be able to stay open during this construction?
Yes, ma'am. It's going to be disruptive.
They're gonna-
That's a great word. It will be disruptive because when we build the roads up, because all the access roads are going to get built up, because I don't know if you noticed, kind of like they're like about the same level as the swamp. So those get built up a little bit. And what we'll be able to do is leave the site open as it is, build the right side. I've got some transitional stone in there. I have a lot of stone built in there for transition. So there's going to be times where my grade, existing grade is here, my proposed grade's up here, and I got to have an area for people to drive back and forth between the two different grades. So we've got enough money built in there to pay for the stone to build it in phases so that I can keep it operational.
Okay.
It will be a challenge and it will be disruptive, but it can still stay open.
Okay.
Sounds like it's going to require more of your attention from,
Well, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Out there every day.
And we have the folks
You-
to stay on top.
you have some other eyes that's going to be on it too.
Every
You have to
day.
use it, don't you?
Well, yeah,
I'll tell Linda.
but I
to stop
pass
your
by
house
it every day. So anyway, well, I'm glad that we have enough money to get it done.
Yes, ma'am.
It definitely needs to be done. So, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion, we approve the bid, bid for Taylor's Creek construction for the Gumbranch Solid Waste Convenience Center for $750,000.
Second.
Plus a 10% contingency.
10% contingency, yes, sir.
Any further discussion?
There is one thing, and I mentioned to Commissioner Swift, and I don't know, Clint's in here and Mike is too, but I don't know what type of lighting is out there, but this thing that you're gonna be doing, of course, the time has changed, but people is gonna be coming earlier, trying to get in and out. So if we've got to do some temporary lighting out there to make it safe, and then it may wind up something that we got to do. I know it's got a closed time frame, but y'all know, and Clint, you right around the corner there. I don't expect you to monitor it because you got people that will do it, but you might want to just put your 2 cents worth in later on.
If we need to put some more lighting up there, then
We
we'll get with
probably
Canucci and get that
Yes,
taken
ma'am.
care
We
of.
can get with Canucci and see about getting some additional lighting.
I'm sure they have more state-of-the-art lighting now compared to what we got
I
out there
heard they
now.
did. There's not as good as that other company, but
Oh, well, Georgia Power.
Okay.
All right.
We got you.
Do we vote?
Canucci.
All in favor, raise your right hand, please. All right.
make a note of that, George,
It is
about the lights
approved.
now, because you'll forget it.
And it's Canucci, not Georgia Power.
So make a note of that.
It is Canucci.
Yes, sir.
It is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
They ought to be able to handle a street light.
No fighting, children, no fighting.
It's all fun.
Proposal EMS Station 2.
Yes, I'm proud to tell you, put a copy there, that's for you. We received 4 bids on this project, 4 proposals on this project. Committee scored those. The high score in that project was that Williams Construction. I'd say for 218,000 days. Their proposal price was $2,498,000. On the memo that I provided you also, if you go to the facilities proposed to go into the Tradeport West park. So there are some improvements that we're gonna make consistent with what the park needs are too, so that, you know, we can try to marry up what we need to there. Basically, the development authority had some money that was allocated within SPLOST 6 park improvements. And they've agreed to, basically use some of that money, for those improvements that we felt like they ought to participate in. That amount will be $347,926. We take that and also apply $1 million of A.R.P.A. that the board had designated for that project. And basically, what we will need to do a construction loan for that we've obtained pricing from the mayor's bank on is $1.5 million, which is great news.
Not bad.
That is good news.
Not bad.
So the recommendation is that you award the Dabbs Williams at a cost of $2,498,000 plus the 10% contingency, and also authorize the commission to engage a construction loan for the project in the amount of $1.5 million. That interest rate to be charged, basically, by Ameris is quoted a loan period in 5 years. 5 years, I'm sorry, let me back up. The one I provided you is basically 10-year at 3.3% interest over that, and very good rate.
It is.
You shop the loan, sir?
Ameris really is the only one right now that can handle a loan like this. Or, you know, Heritage going through a transition, the credit union basically can't handle governmental loans like this, so that's what they answer. Ameris is really the only one
Go for it.
that is very competitive rate.
Okay.
Mr. Bob Day, the architect for SPG Design Group, here too, any questions you might have on the project itself, but following the award, we go ahead and make notification that they'll be getting their bonding documents together and issues for having pre-construction.
Don't I recall conversation, correct me if I'm wrong, about repaying the loan through SPLOST?
Actually, that, it is an eligible SPLOST project. You know, come time if you want to put that on there, of course, you'll have some other things too, some large projects like the fire station and health department and some others, but totally, yes, sir.
But we can consider it, okay. Okay, all right. Any other questions about this project? Ladies and gentlemen,
Mr. Brown, from start to finish, what's the estimated time?
They quoted a time of 215 days, so, which was actually the quickest time element. You know, on these projects, especially right now, there are liquidated damages that are put on, the construction projects, and I'm glad because of, as you've been talking about, delivery of materials and some of those things. That's the reason I'm anxious to go ahead and get them on board. We'll sit down and have a project meeting, we'll look at long lead time items, identify those, and go ahead and try to get those on order, so that they're in the hopper. So, sorry to be so long-winded. They
No.
quoted 215, Commissioner Stevens.
Okay.
We're hoping for that if things are made constant materials here.
All right.
Also, Mr. Chair, I see on here, it also discusses about the NWB policy.
Good point, yes, sir. They did meet the NWB criteria. All these, you know, are put in sealed envelopes.
Right.
And, Ms. Cliff, that she reviewed them and they did meet.
Good to know. Thank you.
Was Dabbs William our bidder on animal control? Yeah, we,
they're,
Yes, sir, and it was completed in time.
Yeah.
okay.
they're
That's
busy,
all-
they're busy around town doing several.
We're also doing the park over here.
Yeah,
Oh, that's where I've seen it.
yeah.
I want to think they're also.
Something
doing
else.
the,
Who's doing the incubator?
project.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, they're busy around town.
Well, we'll keep them here then.
Yeah.
For a motion?
And just for your information, about all this, we need almost a picture of the present EMS place. You would agree that it needs to be
Yeah.
replaced, so, it allows us to put our employees in under decent working conditions, because where they are now is just, yeah, it needs a lot of work.
Sir, ready?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we award the contract to Dab Williams for $2,498,000 for the construction of the EMS station on the West Industrial Park.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Motion that we approve the Daz Williams for the stated amount. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor, raise your right hand, please. Those opposed, the motion passes. Thank you. Polycarts.
This year, as you recall, the board approved the engagement contract with MSW Consultants to do a Polycart analysis that is used in unincorporated area of the county, and also to examine two municipalities that had expressed a possible interest in doing that. So Mr. John Culbertson is here tonight. Those of you who have been here for a while remember Mr. Culbertson. Before you before, so.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
I don't think the low bidder did this. It's almost tall enough. Good to see everybody. Great, we have a presentation. Thank you, Mr. Brown. John Culbertson with MSW Consultants. It's nice to see folks again. We are a management consulting company that works with local and county governments across the U.S., helping to optimize their solid waste systems. And I'm here tonight to hopefully go through in a fairly efficient manner our finding of looking at curbside collection. And so before I even look at the first slide, I'll just make an opening statement that you look at all the population centers around the country, suburban, urban areas, obviously having that curbside, having your trash truck and potentially your bulky waste collection or your recycling collection come to your driveway, to your curbside collection in suburban, urban areas, very much the standard. That is not typically the case in more rural areas, and Liberty County has, I think, very reasonably relied on a system of convenience centers to serve the needs of county unincorporated residents, some of the smaller municipalities. We've actually just coming on the heels of an action on a convenience center, so this project is really an attempt, and what I'm hoping to do tonight is paint a picture of what it might look like if Liberty County were to migrate from its current system where you're servicing your residents through convenience centers, where your residents have to come to a finite number of places to deposit their trash, their putrescible waste, their bulky items, and their recycling. This is really kind of a first cut at what it might look like to deliver curbside service with a full-size garbage truck with some automated collection in some regard, using some of the collection technology that's out there. So with that as a precursor statement, I'll see if I can't just work through things. And I tend to not read too much from slides, and I always get a little worried. I probably have more numbers and words on these slides than is really necessary to tell the story. And I do want to say one thing, and I would look at Mr. Brown and Mr. Mosley confirm. We actually have a more detailed, a little bit longer slide deck with some additional background. I don't know if that's been made available. If it hasn't, we do have a longer version. I wasn't made aware. Yeah, a lot of graphs, some photographs. In other words,
We will provide it.
okay, if we haven't, yeah, thank you for that. In other words, we try to really do a pretty thorough technical job and also provide some graphs and some photographs to illustrate some of the things. This is a pretty straightforward, mostly just tables and words. But just real quick, our methodology, so our firm has some very robust modeling tools. There are parameters that are important to know about running curbside collection door to door. If you know your customer counts and your tonnage, and you know the location of the vehicle yard and the location of the transfer station and speed limits, you can model very accurately the routing demand. How many trucks would it take? And essentially, we had an opportunity working with solid waste staff who, as usual, were super helpful, supportive, helping us get the background. In fact, driving around with us, showing us different areas of the unincorporated county, some of the challenges that you would face in a more rural setting. So we got excellent support, from the county solid waste in, doing the due diligence on this. And essentially, we tried to boil down this analysis to some some fairly, just trying to block this out so that it's easy to explain. So the first thing we looked at is, the Polycart analysis. So Polycart, these are 60 to 95 gallon carts that we do have some small areas already that the county is servicing. There probably are some in some of the cities, but these carts are for regularly generated household trash, kitchen trash, bathroom trash, putrescible waste. So the first exercise we undertook was to estimate what would it look like to deliver this curbside trash in polycarts to the unincorporated county. As was alluded to earlier, we have your current system. Your current system. I want to mention current system. So the county is already providing some curbside polycart service to a very small subset of households in Flemington, and there's a rural area outside of Riceboro. So, Liberty County is already in the business of curbside, which it's not a big service, but that is helpful because you at least have some operational platform that you're used to. And that's worth having, because if you were coming into this cold, that could be a little bit different situation. But anyway, you'll see current system. The current system is very, very small. It's very limited, and I think it's blending the services that the county needs to equally serve all of your unincorporated residents. We looked at actually two broad scenarios where we would expand this polycart service to the entire unincorporated area, which was our scenario one. But then we also were aware that Riceboro and Midway might eventually tuck in. And a statement I'll make about solid waste collection, it's a business of scale. So more households you can serve at a lower unit cost per household. So typically, if you're going to get into the collection business or expand your trash collection business, more houses, you can do that more cheaply on a per unit basis than less houses. So it always makes sense to tuck in additional households. So that's why we looked at multiple scenarios. But you can see right off the bat, going from 600 houses to 8,000, that's a pretty significant jump. And we're going to now delve into what that means. So I've got just a series of tables. And again, I always hesitate to put a bunch of numbers, but I'll try to highlight what's important about these numbers. And I think what's important is the current system right now, it really only takes 1 to 2 days a week going out to provide polycart collection. And furthermore, that collection is provided with a front load truck technology that hooks a Corrado can. There's essentially a can that, if you think about the commercial trucks with the forks on the front, I don't have a picture here, but the current system leverages the existing commercial collection fleet. And so it's about as convenient as you can get operationally to provide a very limited amount of curbside polycart. But basically 1 day a week, 2 routes. So it's a small system. Now let's look at scenario 1 and 2. The numbers are different, but the results are the same. And very quickly, what you realize is instead of running 1 or 2 trucks 1 day a week, now you've got to run 4 trucks all 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And so, first of all, that's not actually a huge system. That's a pretty small and constrained system in the realm of municipal curbside collection. But that is a very, very significant commitment for an operational service that is not currently in place with the convenience centers. So I don't have all the statistics here, but essentially we try to be conservative. We think that this routing demand is achievable with the current automated collection technology, with a properly trained CDL driver. But it's a pretty significant commitment in terms of growing your operational footprint. And I've got a couple tables that actually delve into some of the operating parameters if you take on curbside putrescible waste collection. So the first has to do, let me just talk about equipment and staff. So you need trucks. You might need the attachment to Corrado cans. That's the attachment that automatically tips the carts. And you're going to need, so you got to buy carts for everybody, and then you've got to hire equipment operators. So this table really compares a very small commitment in terms of existing trucks, which, by the way, your existing trucks also get used for other customers for commercial collection. So it's a nice, you're tucking in the polycart collection right now. If the county goes forward with a full residential curbside polycart solution, that would essentially create a dedicated residential collection system with dedicated residential collection trucks and dedicated equipment operators to operate those trucks. And you can see there's just some capital investment associated here because you're essentially purchasing at least 3 trucks, at least 3 more trucks. You're purchasing additional Corrado cans potentially, and you're buying, 7,600 carts at $60 a pop. So there's some capital, certainly capital investment that goes into this. And last but not least, instead of having one equipment operator for a couple days a week, there would be a need to have equipment operators every day because as soon as you get into the curbside collection service, you can't afford to miss a collection because that's when the complaints start rolling in and that's where you really have trouble. And we've actually, unfortunately, in our industry, we've experienced a lot of that, especially with the COVID pandemic. It's created some real problems in certain, really across the country, but in certain areas especially bad, where it hasn't been possible to put equipment operators out on route and trash starts to stack up. So it's a tough situation that you don't face as much with the convenience center system. So that was the previous table talked about the resources. So this table attempts to put some dollar values to the current system compared to investing in a Polycart system. And essentially what you see is that, to do the limited incremental Polycart service now to 600 households, it's a relatively small direct cost, $165,000. If you actually go to a dedicated service, just in the direct, this is an annualized capital cost, direct equipment operating expense, direct labor and benefits, you're pushing $900,000 at that point. And I do want to say, I think this is important, we worked with Liberty County Solid Waste to look at, current wages and the current cost of vehicles that would be accessible. And so we've built our cost assuming Liberty County actually provided this with publicly owned trucks, publicly employed equipment operators. Realistically, you could contract for this, right? You could also go out to the private market. You could do a bid or a proposal and have a private entity come in. Our guess is this is probably the lowest cost. If you went out to the private market and contracted, it would probably be higher than we've estimated because the private sector at the moment has been placing a higher risk premium on these services because it's been harder to get people. And certainly there's a profit margin that is built in for any private sector proposal that we don't have here. So we didn't estimate what that increase would be, but I think it's important to know that we modeled it assuming this was provided with Liberty County Solid Waste making those investments in equipment and in carts and in hiring and managing those employees, because I think that's really important. So, and we've converted some of this into a cost per household, and that's typically the way we look at things. I'll point out real briefly, so interestingly, despite these higher dollar figures, the unit cost per household, pretty reasonable, right? No reason that this service couldn't be provided at a fairly reasonable level. It's a little more expensive per household in a rural area because there's more non-productive drive time between houses. It might be longer drive time from the vehicle location to the route to the tipping facility. But essentially, it actually, there's nothing here that is unaffordable in the wide world of solid waste for cities and counties that are in the collection business. So I do want to mention that as well. It's certainly within the range you would expect.
Let me ask you a question there before you get too far. Go back. You in this figure here, you've got employees included in that.
Yes, sir.
And trucks included in that.
Yes, sir.
How many employees do you have per truck?
Oh, yeah, good question. So the automated form of collection that would be used only requires a single employee who can sit in the cab and has a hydraulic arm that is able to grasp the carts. The carts are all standardized, and the hydraulic arm can grasp the cart, tip it, and set the empty cart down, and it's all controlled by a single equipment operator with a joystick in the cab. So it's a single employee.
Okay, so that's if you can pull right up to it and the can is sitting right here. But if the can is 10 feet off of the road, or there's cars parked there where he can't get to them, that means that driver's got to stop and go and drag that can up to the device, right? Will it have wheels on it?
Yes, and again, I'm kicking myself for not having a good picture in here to show that. The carts all have wheels. We're persuaded that they are designed ergonomically and that even folks who might be, you know, elderly, not as strong, are generally able to move the cart. Obviously, there are disabled folks that don't. I think the comment I would make is there would certainly be some very important new policies that would need to be put into place governing the expectations of your residents and governing the policies of your equipment operators and trucks about how to, for example, help a disabled resident, but also for non-disabled residents, there are typically placement requirements that would be policies that would also go hand in hand with the service to make sure the residents bring their carts out. I think the arms typically get 5 to 7 feet out. They've got pretty good clearance. But you bring up a very good point, and that's part of an implementation consideration because those are going to be really important policies to have in place along with just the pure technology upgrade.
Well, and you know, a policy is just something that's on a piece of paper, getting somebody to do it. And I know I've seen some areas here it's new construction that, you know, the cars are parked, even in the city they're parked on the curb, and there's no way that you could get to that can unless you stop, you get out, you pull the can up there to it, which is going to require another person. Now, I know Commissioner Gillard here deals with it all the time, but you got 2 people on the back of the truck. One's on one side pulling them up there and they dump them into the back. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. What is the best thing, the one, you know, lifted up with the one, or is there going to be figures in here for using 2? Or Joey, have y'all looked at that?
No, sir. We hadn't looked at a 2-system rear-loading truck. This is strictly with either a sidearm bandit or a karate can.
Okay.
Yep.
Excuse me, did he say earlier that we use the same commercial truck to pick up?
In the karate can system.
It was versatile?
That's what we're using right now.
Okay.
We'll discuss, I think we're
Okay.
going to discuss later on in the slides, sidearm bandit or a switch to an alternate type truck in smaller areas.
Yeah,
It
and
wouldn't necessarily cure what he's talking about.
Yeah, I understand.
But it's probably more efficient.
yeah, and that might also be, there's some, I think, very good photos in the broader slide deck that show and compare the Corrado can technology with the sidearm bandit technology. So,
John.
again, I guess in some regard, these would be implementation considerations depending on your reactions to the results of this that we could get into, you know, going forward if implementation is of interest.
John, before you go too much further, do you have in your slide the comparison of price-wise what it costs now for homeowners to get rid of their household
do.
garbage and what it will cost?
I do. I will conclude with that because there are a couple of other operational impacts that I want to hit on, and then I'll conclude with an overall, what's the impact on the homeowner? So that's a good question. I will get there. So this first part of the conversation has been confined to putrescible waste, you know, household trash. However, your convenience centers also get bulky trash. So folks can bring in mattresses, furniture, you know, brush, all kinds of bulky items that don't fit in a 96-gallon cart. So we took our assignment, was we defined what would a full curbside service look like to be consistent with other jurisdictions across the country that offer curbside collection and don't have any convenience centers. And what you realize very quickly is you need to provide an outlet at the curbside, not just for the household trash, but also for the bulky trash. Because everybody cleans out their basements and their attics and their yard and whatever it is, and they have bulk items that don't go in the cart. Certainly, if you went Polycart, you would want to encourage as much use of that cart as you can, but invariably there will be bulky items that don't go in the cart. So the second aspect of our analysis was, let's bring bulky service out to the curb as well. And there are truck technologies. In fact, you have a grapple truck. There are trucks that you could use that pick up bulky items. So we did the same analysis. Let's go curbside for bulky waste. So let's take a look at that. So it turns out you also currently run grapple trucks. That's a technology with the big knuckle boom that can pivot out and pick up a pile and put a pile in a dump bed. So that's a technology that the county currently operates and currently provides some services and some cleanup. So currently, again, there actually is curbside bulky going on in Flemington and in the rural Riceboro area just to provide those services. which is great because we actually had some real productivity data that we could use and think about in terms of what would it look like to now expand that bulky service across the county rural area. So what is the takeaway is going curbside on bulky is basically another set of trucks and routes that's comparable to the putrescible curbside. It's essentially doubling the size of the routes needed. So you'd have one set of routes for collecting the polycarts, and if you add the bulky material to a curbside service, you essentially have another set of routes that are doing the bulky service. I do want to point out, especially with bulky waste, there are some decisions that could be made that would reduce this level of effort and cost. And there also are some assumptions that can drive the findings with bulky waste. Set out rates are very important, set out allowances. This goes back to this notion of having policies on paper, but also having the wherewithal to enforce the policies. You don't want unlimited bulk waste set out because of productivity issues and frankly, equity issues. So we've made some assumptions in deriving these numbers that we would limit to, I believe it was up to three or four items or 2 cubic yards, so that you don't get huge piles, 20 cubic yard pile of something out in front of somebody's house. But again, the notion that you would need new policies, possibly new enforcement, probably public education and outreach is implicit. That would be a critical part of going this direction. We haven't talked about that yet, but it's not like you just wave your magic wand, put in the new technology. There's a lot of outreach to go into this. So we could come back to that in a moment. I want to do the same comparisons of equipment and labor because there would be a need for the county or somebody to acquire the new trucks, buy the new grapple trucks. We also have modeled this as single operator equipment because a grapple truck, it pulls up, it anchors, and then the operator actually gets out of the cab, goes up and operates the knuckle boom, so it's a single operator. But again, you would be you'd be recruiting at least 4 more drivers. You'd be purchasing new trucks, so kind of the same story over again. And on a cost standpoint, again, same story. You'd be going from a system right now in convenience centers that costs about $160,000 to pull these roll-off boxes from your convenience centers. As soon as you deliver to the curb, now you're up in the $600,000 range. And again, these costs are assuming the county takes on the service. You could contract for this, probably going to make the cost higher than what we've shown. So to conclude, going to a curbside model from the current convenience center model is a significant change. It's a significant change in doing business, and it's a significant investment, whether it's made by the county or whether the county contracts with a private hauler. And believe me, there are plenty of private haulers that I believe would be willing to propose and to bid and to provide this service. But this would be a pretty dramatic change in the business model for solid waste collection in Liberty County. And I think that's a takeaway. Now, that said, it would really ramp up and deliver fantastic service because now every household in the unincorporated area would, once a week, get to go put their cart out and it'd get taken away, and once a week they could put some bulk items out. So it would both increase the service, but it would also increase the operational challenges and the investment and the commitment that Liberty County makes. I mean, it's kind of a not unexpected trade-off. So the last part of our analysis is if the county opts to bring curbside service, then that should allow pretty substantial elimination of the convenience centers, because the convenience centers exist for the unincorporated residents and for the communities that don't have curbside bulky. The last piece of the puzzle to us was if you go to a curbside system, you could ramp down the convenience centers. So the last couple of slides I have here before I do a financial household wrap-up, which is really important, is I just want to talk through essentially mothballing and decommissioning the convenience centers and then netting out the cost of providing collection to the convenience centers. So that would complete the shift, if you would, all the way to curbside. So if you go curbside, you could eliminate all of the compactors at the convenience centers that right now get all the putrescible waste, and you could eliminate the open top containers that get the bulky items at the convenience centers. We have not contemplated curbside recycling, and there is a little bit of a, and I'll touch on this as one of the concluding challenges, you still have recycling capability at convenience centers, which there would need to be something to do with recycling. We haven't touched recycling. But you could essentially eliminate the convenience centers, but there's an asterisk by that because you would want to find some other place for recycling drop-off. I don't necessarily know that you'd want to just cancel recycling entirely. You'd probably be repositioning recycling drop-off. But you would, in addition to essentially closing the convenience centers, you would be taking some roll-off trucks off the road. You still need roll-off trucks because you provide roll-off service, right? You're not just serving convenience centers. You could eliminate I do have one cool picture, that pack mat. It's a kind of a compacting wheel that is used to really expand the capacity. And so we essentially modeled what would it take if we eliminated the operating expense, and what else could we do? Well, we would decommission the convenience centers. So here's a table that just talks about essentially the equipment right now. This is your sunk costs that you have. These are your compactors and your roll-offs. So there's about $900,000 worth of just equipment in terms of trucks and compacting containers and pack mats that you would not have to be planning for. The reason this is important, by the way, is right now the county has a 5-year rate model for its assessment that anticipates replacing this. So we've built in the cost of replacement in your current costs, so that replacement cost comes out, and that offsets the Polycart, the curbside collection, a little bit. But it's about $830,000 that you would no longer be replacing. This is where I feel like I'm going to get self-conscious and put my foot in my mouth. But we also, in our most recent rate model, had built in some capital improvement plans for expanding and upgrading the convenience centers. And you can see that they're pretty significant, about $1.6 million of convenience center upgrades that we have. And I did note that the Gumbranch upgrade, actually, you got a better bid than what we had in our budget. So I was concurring with the earlier presentation that it looked like you got a good competitive bid on that upgrade. But that, in theory, wouldn't need to be done, that upgrade, if you went the route of the Polycart. And for what that is worth, we did try to capture the avoided capital improvements if you go to a curbside model. And so bringing all that together, I want to conclude with some slides that show some of the financial impact per household, some of the rate impacts, and also talk a little bit about challenges and next steps. So, all right, so the first couple of things to look at is we just tried to show what is the kind of the just direct standalone per household cost of adding the Polycart. So what's the Polycart? $112 a year. That's what it would cost for delivering that cart service. Another $76 a year per household for the bulky. But then you would net out the convenience center operating cost. So those are the 3 rows on here. And what that does is it tells you it's 12 months a year, $126, about $10 a month to provide these services, and that's a very that's also collection only. That doesn't include the disposal part. So we've got the disposal part funded and covered somewhere else. So that's strictly for collection, and that's just a little bit for scale. One of the things that we felt was at least worth thinking about is, in order to go to a curbside business model, you're going to be staffing up at Liberty County Solid Waste, right? You're buying more trucks. You've got to maintain more trucks with fleet maintenance. You've got to hire more CDL, commercial driver's license drivers to operate the trucks. And if you look across the overall budget of Liberty County Solid Waste, we're anticipating that this is going to, the overall size of your system is going to go up by about 25%. Obviously, you still run the transfer station. Obviously, you still have some recycling program. I believe some Keep Liberty Beautiful. There's some other beautification efforts. But this business model, if the county buys the trucks and employs the drivers, increases the system, you could also contract. That would increase. That would be a way to increase the system, provide the services without staffing up. But it's certainly the cost is still going to go up. So that's one of the decisions that we might come back to. So that was our takeaway in terms of you go from about a $4 million a year solid waste budget to about a $5 million a year solid waste budget in making this decision. Frankly, if you contract, it's probably north of $5 million a year. it's going to be a little bit higher that way. And this, I believe, is the question that Commissioner Stevens was asking. We did want to show the current assessment and then kind of do the math that would adjust for adding the Polycart and taking away the convenience centers. I feel like I'm standing right between you.
No,
But so what you can see, just jumping to the conclusion, is that far right column of numbers shows the annual assessment per household. The first column on the left shows the current assessment. The column on the right shows the new assessment. And the comment I would make is those are pretty serious rate increases. Yeah, right? I mean, if folks are willing, they're used to paying the number on the left, $173 to $221 for their current system, and it's going to go up to $300. That's a big percentage increase. We would argue that's a reasonable price to pay for a curbside business model, right? This isn't an excessive cost for a rural curbside system, but in addition to I guess I'd put it to you this way: all of your residents would get way better service because they're having their waste collected at the curb, but they would pay for it. And that's really what we're showing here, is there would be a significant rate increase. And I think, on account of that, anytime there's a rate increase, that generates a lot of interest among your constituents. So this is not something to obviously undertake lightly. That better service, higher cost, it's really that trade-off that would need to be navigated were the county to go forward looking into a curbside business model. And so I think I actually have you had enough time to study? There's probably some numbers on here that you might be interested in, depending on what communities you know. I guess I'll also mention, just as a reminder, individual incorporated municipalities are already providing curbside service in some cases. So the assessment here is, the impact on the assessment is much bigger for the rural areas which don't have any curbside compared to the areas that already have some curbside. They're obviously not responsible for this new Polycart system. You go into Hinesville, and there's really no change because they already have all curbside. They're paying for that somewhere else outside of the county's assessment. So
John,
just kind of reminding folks.
could this cost go down? Because I know the initial startup is going to cost you more, correct?
I'm glad you asked that question, because what we try to do when we look at full costs and we look at annual assessments and rates is that we try to annualize the startup cost and spread that startup cost across the useful life of the trucks and the equipment. So these rates reflect the full capital cost of the equipment. But you have to go back to those previous slides to show, and this is, I think, a slide that got omitted just for brevity's sake. There is definitely a bigger upfront capital cost because those sidearm bandit trucks probably cost $350,000 a piece. So, we're talking over, north of $1 million for new trucks. Then you throw in the grapple trucks, that's probably, $1.5 million, $2 million. There's a significant capital investment that would need to be financed that I haven't put in this deck, but we have that information, and obviously we want to make you, aware of that. But it is included in these costs, though. The annualized startup cost is included here. Now, what's not included here in terms of startup are what I would call the softer costs. That would be the things like a public education campaign. That would be the things like there's probably a little bit of friction in procuring these trucks and these services. There's some hiring and recruiting and retention costs. I mean, you get into just a bigger business, so you're going to have some frictional costs, if you will, that maybe aren't in here. But this is, I think, a pretty good representation of the full cost of going to a curbside business model. So this is actually my last slide, and I do want to call out that this goes to the point of my goal today and our goal today was to give a conceptual view of what does curbside service delivery look like in unincorporated Liberty County. Our scope of services for this work purposefully has this meeting now to kind of give you a status report of what we found. But depending on your guidance, we could continue going forward and develop an implementation plan and, kind of keep going, either research new things or develop an implementation plan, depending on what you might, what guidance you give. Or if the guidance is, this isn't for us, then we could actually, cease and not do the implementation plan. But I did want to point out this slide, some of the things that would absolutely need to be addressed during implementation. Some of them we've already talked about. Commissioner Walden brought up, policies versus what really happens in actuality. So going forward, if you are interested in actually developing a more detailed implementation plan to really see how this might go through, how long might it take, how much lead time do you need to order the trucks and equipment, how would you divest from the convenience centers? I mean, those are all implementation timing issues that we have not looked into, but we can if we're so directed. But under challenges, there are a number of things that still would need to be figured out in that implementation plan. The policies set out policies. You absolutely, if you go Polycart, you have to demand your residents put things in the Polycart. You don't want a box next to the Polycart because now you've completely torpedoed the productivity of the Polycart system. So there becomes a policy enforcement, public education component that is going to be an upgrade compared to the convenience centers. Recycling. Right now, there's drop-off recycling. The county has an outlet for recyclables. If you close the convenience centers down, probably going to have to relocate those drop-off locations or make some decision because I think our consensus is with staff and us as a consultant is you wouldn't just leave those convenience center locations open just for the recycling areas. That you get a whole lot of illegal dumping in those enclosed. You would essentially need to get those convenience centers out, get the fences. I mean, they can't have any semblance of an old convenience center because that's just an invitation for illegal dumping if you have that. So those are, I think, probably legitimate issues. Another thing that comes up with curbside service is with the help from the county. I feel like we had some GIS folks help, Geographic Information System folks. You have almost 500 households on private drives. So I will tell you, the private sector hauling community doesn't want to drive their heavy-duty trash truck down a private drive, go off the road and leave a big rut or smash a mailbox or whatever it is, because now you have liability issues. So if you have 500 households on private drives and Liberty County unincorporated, there's some decisions and policies to be made about how you service those customers without putting the county at higher risk and liability. So that's something that you need to work through. The other thing that is the case is you've got a private hauler, at least one. I hope I'm not missing it. It is still just one. You have a private entity that already is providing some Polycart service in the county unincorporated area. So there's some business displacement considerations. If the county goes forward with this service, you would potentially be displacing this hauler or potentially negotiating to set aside a service area. So that can get, that's somebody's livelihood. That's something you don't want to, take minimally. You want to be, hitting that head on. So current private agreements would, come into play potentially. I don't think I have to tell anybody, because I just heard the story of the new ambulances coming in after 2 years. Lead time to purchase heavy-duty equipment, quite significant. In fact, just as we thought we were coming out of the pandemic and that would get better, now we have probably a pretty scary war situation going on that seems like that's increasing some of the supply chain issues. So if you're in the collection business and you have to buy $350,000 trucks, you got to have those when you have them. And if it's going to take you a year to get them, this is all really important if you're going to get into that business. And then last but not least, if you go this route, especially if Liberty County opts to employ its own equipment operators, you're now recruiting against private haulers. You're trying to find skilled equipment operators in a pretty tight labor market, and that has really been a challenge in the waste industry. There have been major cities that have not been able to get enough drivers in the door to provide trash service. We just had a big issue. City of Nashville actually had to pay an inordinate amount of money to bring in an emergency residential trash collection service because their hauler couldn't find the labor locally. They had to bring people in from out of town. And I'm not trying to scare anybody because I think these are things you can overcome. I think some of these, perhaps a private entity, you might go a contractual route. I think some private haulers maybe have the ability. I think you could do it. I've frankly been very impressed with the operating capabilities of the county, but I would say this is an eyes open situation. And I just feel it's my responsibility, in delivering better service, in making that investment, spending more money. There's a bigger business operating, commitment and operating risk. And I just think these are all important concepts. I think there's a right way to go forward on this. If you're thinking that your constituents want this service, we could take a look at that. But again, just lot of things to be aware of, and I just am a big believer in over-communicating on these issues. I feel like I've talked more than I should have, and I've gone longer than I should have, but I'm done. But I'd be more than happy to answer some questions, and we also do have a great deal of additional, just some of the backup for those that want to dig into it more. But I did not come with any recommendations of action, but we're more than happy to either answer questions or entertain thoughts.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
More so for Joey. Joey, have we looked at using the system similar to what we have in Hinesville with the driver and the two guys in the back? And the reason I ask that, I don't know what the cost would be, but I do know using the automated truck, the one-arm bandit is what some people call it, you have to go down every street twice. So there's a cost associated with that. And as far as customer service, I think he mentioned the overflow. You know, you got a Polycart that the person is paying for, but they had a cookout over the weekend, and they got 2 or 3 extra bags of kitchen trash can out there. Customer service with the 2 guys on the back, they would just throw that in, okay? And in Hinesville, as some people know, that if a person forgets to put the trash out, we go get it. As Eddie was saying, you do have to have it within arm reach of that automated system. And yeah, you can put a policy in place and say that it needs to be right here. But customer service, that would be taken care of. So I don't know if I know this proposal does not include that, but I would like to know what the cost would be for the same system that we use here in the city of Hinesville. I know it may be more, but fuel costs, if it's going down every street twice, down one end, up the other, as opposed to zigzagging across like we do here in Hinesville. And he mentioned bulky trash. Now, when I think of that, I'm thinking brown goods, sofas, chairs, mattresses, old velvet pictures of Elvis Presley. But is yard trash considered into that? That's it. This all that would just be in one pile, and Mike.
All in one pile, but it's one pickup of that.
So yeah.
I guess what I'm saying, Mike goes around with the knuckle boom, and he would, we dumped the Polycart, then Mike would go and he would pick up a sofa if it was out, and a pile of leaves. It wouldn't be a separate leaf truck, would it? Mike would get all of that, wouldn't he?
In Flemington, that's what he's doing, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it'd be protrusibles and everything. I guess everything that's not in the Polycart would be separate, that Mike would get with the knuckle boom.
He would, and in Flemington right now, there's certain requirements about how much you can put out, almost like there is in Hinesville, to a certain standard.
No,
But it's
supposed
supposed to be.
Yeah, well,
You guys pick up here.
yeah, we get it. And I've never seen the Corrado can. Is that a one-man or two-man operation? A one-man.
Now, basically, the forks go by and pick it up. I mean, it slides onto the forks of the truck. Basically,
What slides on to the
Karate can. The karate can, basically, the forks of the truck go into the karate can.
Okay.
The karate can has a lift mechanism on it, something like the sidearm bandit does, and so it pulls up, basically, it tips it in.
So the Corrado can is on our front loading truck that picks up the dumpsters, and
Then when it gets full, it basically just tips it back.
It can't be on the front. I mean, if it's on the front, how's he gonna move if he sets the can back down? Got to go,
It is on the front, he lifts the can to drive.
do what?
He lifts the can to drive and go to another location.
I thought that was on the side. What is that thing?
On the front.
And it slides to the forks of the truck, like I say, and it's the same technology as sidearm bandit. It sets low enough that the driver can see over it, and the same technology runs out, grabs the can, tips it, and when that karate can is full, he just dumps in the back of the truck, sets it back down. and goes
Oh,
in.
the karate
And he's
can's
gonna drive
separate.
along just
Okay.
How he can put that can.
In the back.
In the back of the truck, where nothing's in front of the truck.
So the cart that's sitting out front, the container from the house is you don't have to move it. It just stays right there where it's at when you drive off.
When he reach out, grab it, bring it back in and dumps it, sticks it right back over on the curb.
Gotcha.
He never has
Yeah,
to do it.
but yeah, Joey, if we could look at what it would cost, and I know it, it's gonna be a difference, but, with customer service, I mean, I'm quite sure, we'll have some seniors that would need help. I mean, we got an apartment complex in Hinesville where my guys go in there and get all 50 of those cans. I mean, because of, elderly and handicapped. So you run into a situation like that, maybe out in the rural area, but it may be someone that's elderly that you would have to provide that extra service to, unless her, grandson goes there the night before and put it out on trash day. But and we have people that forget to put the trash out, and then you have people that don't forget to put it out, but call and say that we missed it. But customer service, we just go and get it if we can see it. So that added service, I think it comes with a cost, but I would like to know what it would be to have the one driver with the two guys, and it's employment opportunities as well. People, more jobs for people if we did that. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. Mr. Culbertson, on the challenges, the current agreements, did we know about how many people in the unincorporated area currently have private?
I don't trust my memory, but I believe we have someone here.
1,300 that currently have service through J&S Rural Sanitation in Mowing County.
About 1,300
Out of
we had
about 7,800 total. So it's a
7,800.
meaningful percentage of folks who have decided to pay out of their pocket. And I guess the comment that I would make is if only 1,300 out of 7,800 get the service, it's a lot less productive. So they're paying more per household. A countywide system would be a lower cost per unit because now you're serving everybody equally. But 1,300 is certainly a number to.
I know there's a lot in my area, unincorporated in the Gumbranch area. Of course, there's a lot of elderly folks out there, but you also have people that move in that don't know where the convenience center is. They don't have a pickup truck, so it just kind of piles up, or they don't really know what to do with it. And we have to educate them. Hey, there is a Polycart service that'll come by and pick it up. But that's my concern in the unincorporated area where I live. I see a lot, but I see a lot of people with the Polycarts out that way.
Mr. Chair, so piggyback on what Commissioner Gillett said earlier. You have some elderly people that stays up in the lane. We need to look at that situation. And also, to maintain good quality drivers is going to be an issue if we don't do something with our pay scale for CDL drivers. We don't need drivers that we're going to hire today, learn, tear up, and leave. We need drivers that we're going to hire and they're going to stay with us. So that's another issue that we need to look at. I know that's not your problem, John.
Commissioner Stevens, to that point, we, as part of our underlying due diligence, we actually identified that at the moment would be a risk, that the pay scale for CDL drivers would put the county at risk of not being able to retain those drivers. And we've actually seen that, especially in the local government sector. We've seen upward pressure on wages for drivers and all folks on the front lines of solid waste, which I personally frankly think there's some due justice on that, because these are folks that, go out and remove trash from all over the place every day. But there has definitely been just an upward movement from the private sector. The private sector's driving it, and by default, because public sector services, you're in the market, right? You're in the labor market. But I think that's a very astute statement, and that's one that we think we've confirmed, that there's a broader issue, probably not just limited to solid waste, probably across other county departments and other county frontline departments as well, but certainly in solid waste.
Now, I'm thinking, is our purpose to provide a service to people who aren't served, or is this a for-profit kind of look at trash collection? Because I'm thinking when it comes to, my mind went to Isle of Wight was up there, the new subdivision that's coming. If I were in a subdivision, I'd want to have this kind of service. So is that company you reference, are they marketing to those people or not? Or are the developers doing anything for that or not? Yeah. So if we're trying to provide a service, then man, yeah, that's the thing to do. So those folk won't have to. And we don't want our trash piles out. We try to make Liberty County look better, not look
Right.
worse with trash
A lot of
piled
it
up.
winds up in the ditch, blowing out.
The developers have actually approached the hauler or not. I know that we completely open to it. There are a few areas that a POA has serviced.
I see.
Yellow Bluff has, their homeowners association provides a bulk of the polycarts for a discount, and he gives them a discounted rate because they've got a concentrated number of polycarts in that area. But what I've seen is in neighborhoods, because I look through their customer list and adjust the solid waste accordingly for those customers to their rate, to the rate that doesn't take household trash to the convenience center. So they have a lower solid waste assessment. But what I see is in neighborhoods, it's just contagious. One neighbor gets it,
Everybody signs up.
if a few people in the neighborhood get it, it's like.
Word of mouth.
You'll have a street without it, and then the next street over, one person's got it, and all the neighbors realize this is a really good idea.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, piggyback on what this gentleman has said, and of course Commissioner Gillard, I like the way he points down at me when he says some people forget to take their can out to the road.
Every Monday.
I don't never know what time you're coming, and I want to meet them, so, but you're talking about closing these convenience centers, these places like at Miller Park, and, I mean, I have to ask, Kathy and Clint and Mike and them, when you close that, on our county roads, there's already enough trash. And people are going to find a place to dump. And that's the thing that bothers me is if you don't leave some of these open for a while, that people can carry their trash to. You said illegal dumping, but I mean, I don't know what's illegal or not, besides if you don't live in Liberty County. But I would think that we need to really look at this for some time before we just pull the plug on it.
yeah.
Clinton, I mean, what's your thoughts? Wake up. I know you've been there 25 years, but you're supposed to be awake.
Yeah, my thought is definitely, it's gonna be, you're gonna have that problem, people going illegal dump, all these contractors. That's gonna be part of it. Probably all up and down the road, it's gonna be trash everywhere.
If I read you right, you're saying that some contractors are illegally dumping now.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
We catch them when we
It's
can.
gonna get worse.
Send them magistrate court.
Well,
Well, I mean, we know right now the way the tax base is set, that, there's not anything built for anything other than convenience centers. So that's what people are used to, and I'd rather them, at least carry it down there and have it, instead of it scattered up and down the highway. I drove by right there where Harry Rogers is at, and the whole right-hand side of the highway on 196 is covered with trash, and I know where it blew out of. I mean, it was somebody leaving the transfer station. So that's something we got to, and it ain't our trucks, it's somebody else's truck.
Yeah.
So there's two things that I want to ask, and that is trying to keep them open. Is that something that we could possibly do? And the other thing is, have we looked, Joey, at any time, and other commissioners too, I know Commissioner Stevens has been here, he come with the building just like me, but we need to know, is there a possibility we may need to locate one somewhere else instead of just having one?
A transfer station.
Right.
I have not looked, no, sir, not at all.
Well, I mean, Commissioner Gillard and them, they haul all the way down. And Waldiville does. So that may be something else we need to look at in our plan. Now, I appreciate your presentation. Some of it was way over my head, but, you know, garbage is garbage, whether it's dry trash, solid trash, white goods, brown goods. I mean, and what we want to try to do is like our chairman said, we want to continue to be proud of our community. And there's some folks that can't afford a lot that's out here right now. So I think we're going to have to, you know, address this situation. And it may be, you know, there's some guys that just like going to the dump. That's the only time they get to talk to their neighbors. You know, that's.
Yeah, but, Mr. Chairman, and he wasn't joking, on every Monday, Mr.
You need to find him.
No, every Monday he'll call and say, Gary, Kathy forgot to take the trash out again.
Now, that's a politician. That's a man that'll tell you a lie.
Every Monday, Kathy forgot again.
If it pleases the commission, first of all, thank you I've been trying to listen very closely to the feedback and the questions. I think they're very good. I do think there are, I think we have some flexibility in how and to what extent to proceed. I do believe we could take a step that starts to itemize some of the really important issues and talk about the strategies to address those issues. So that would be one thing that we could absolutely do. I would throw out, even though the scenario we ran was very absolute, close the convenience centers, convert to Polycart, there are an infinite number of options. We could maybe keep a subset of the convenience centers open, right? I mean, there are kind of different flavors of what we presented here that was very black and white, where, you know, but we do have a task to hear some of the issues you brought up, to bring back some of the strategies that have been implemented in other jurisdictions to address some of these concerns. I heard potentially looking at costs of having another person on the truck, which we could look at as well, and I agree that would, especially in a rural setting, that is likely to push the cost on pretty high on a per unit basis, just because of, unlike Hinesville, which is more, you know, higher density. When you get out into the suburban areas, you don't typically see that. I didn't mention this in my presentation, but one of the we actually are seeing less and less of manual collection in the industry. It turns out for like the past, I think it's 10 years, the solid waste industry has been in the top 5 deadliest industries according to OSHA for most of the past 10 years. And for about the past 6 or 7 years, there has been I believe, a sincere move by private sector and public sector entities alike in solid waste to go to these sidearm Polycart non-manual collection, because it's just a health and safety benefit. So I think that's another reason we hadn't looked at a second manual collector out on a rural route. But these are all things that we have some flexibility in this engagement to address the concerns that you're bringing up, because I think those are all critical. I mean, even things like surveys, public outreach, you know, anytime you change the way people are used to having trash service, it's a big deal. I don't care what community you live in. I don't care what service you've had. If you're going to change it, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a big deal. You're going to have the naysayers, the pros and the cons, all of that. So I very much appreciate the input I've heard, and I'd be more than happy to work with.
This is just an information.
Yes, sir.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, that's right. I mean, we were just trying to,
It's good information.
four of us, I mean, you know, we have the luxury of having it picked up as it is now. But, you know, you representing everybody, so, I mean, I like the way mine is right now, even though I do have to.
You forget
Oh,
it.
period.
The assessment prices, if we went that route, it will be the same as we do now on your solid waste bill? Okay, all right. I think then it comes back down to, maybe what Commissioner Gillard said, looking at that scenario. And also, does the county want to provide this as a service to its citizens? Is that what we want to do? Certainly, we don't want to, I don't think we should have to compete with the private people. If they want to do it, let them do it. But I know there's a lot of people who are unserved right now from what
I have
numbers you
asked,
gave me.
Does the county do sort of routine residential surveys? Because this would be I know I've got some other local governments that have sort of a routine survey that they've used as a mechanism. So that's not.
We haven't.
Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I promise you, there's some folk who would love to have somebody come once a week.
Yeah, they would, yeah.
To do that.
Chairman, let me say this, and this will be my last statement. We need to keep in mind, we just approved the renovation of a convenience center at a certain cost. Now we are sitting up here now talking about possibly changing over. Is this good money that we just throw away? Or is that something that we need to keep in mind before we approve another renovation of another convenience center?
Well, I think,
John?
I was asking
last time-
myself that question as well.
John, the last time you came before us, you brought some pictures. You're failing this time. Bring no pictures. Anyway, you did a good job.
So.
but I think we would need to keep.
Explore it.
Yeah, it's just an information session.
At least a few.
Yeah, they would need to be kept
Yeah.
open for
So-
bulky,
Well, yeah,
So,
and for recycling. I'm all in favor of recycling.
recycling and probably, let's say that if everybody had a Polycart, everybody won't be throwing away a love seat. So
Yeah.
maybe the convenience centers would be better for that. That'll save Mike from having to run that same route, picking up bulk trash. You know,
Right.
If
I
it was
would
just for
agree.
bulk, people gonna have garbage every day, every week, but they're not gonna have a piece of furniture
and
every
to
week.
that point, that would be a hybrid solution where you would roll the Polycart and the sidearm bandit out curbside, but keep the convenience centers open for the bulk trash.
For the bulk trash, yeah.
That would be an example of an implementation or a hybrid solution that might balance the needs, or maybe that's part of a transition to a much longer move towards the full curbside. As really, the more dense your population is, the greater the justification is for curbside. It's a heavier lift to go all the way now, but that would be an example of how to take more measured steps in that direction.
And from what I'm hearing, it's not going to be any, everything is going to be populated in Liberty County. I mean, they building houses left and right.
Yeah.
I mean, every minute, every day. They just built 5 since you was
Yeah,
up here.
we actually.
Since you was been here talking.
Growth plan with
Yeah.
hundreds of houses and neighborhoods coming in.
Yeah, I mean,
We actually
every
track
piece of
that
land
down.
is going to have a house one of these minutes.
Yeah, my mind goes to Isle White Road and also what's coming on 196 East
Right.
shortly. So the growth is coming. So whether we do it, somebody needs to be done because we don't want the trash on the sides of the road. We don't want, yeah.
We'll get it.
All right.
All right.
All right. So even, it may be just a matter of expanding what we're doing now, you know, as versus of total.
Well, I would certainly be happy to work with Mr. Brown, Mr. Mosley, with the solid waste folks to maybe respond, you know, what did we hear today? Try to come up with some follow-up items to bring to you to answer some of the concerns, perhaps add one more scenario. And again, this was absolutely a check-in. The last thing I want to do is be presenting to you, oh, we're all done, see you later. You know, so this was this is really important to get this feedback. There is no industry like the solid waste industry to really get the attention of your constituents. So it's just very important to have this opportunity to talk about what what we found, you know, conceptually, but to get the real-world understanding of your constituents, your neighborhoods, you know, the reality here. So thank you for your input on that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Status report.
Yeah. And I kept saying Mike, but you said what his name was, Nathan? Okay. Okay, I got him now. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Good job, good job. Give us a lot to think about.
All right.
All right, proposal of recreation mowing. Mr. Gross, how are you, sir?
Raymond, you almost been here 25 years after setback.
I can promise you all that I will have a less complicated issue. I'm here to present you with the proposal that we have for the bid process for mowing of our outlying parks and recreation facilities. We had a total of 6 bids that we had. We chose the three lowest bidders. The ballot, the bids were unsealed on March 1st.
Bless you.
And we
Thank you.
selected those 3 lowest bids from the bids that were open and sealed, that were sealed. We had 3 candidates for the lowest bid. 2 of them were from Hinesville, 1 of them was from Allenhurst, Georgia. We had Elite Southern Enterprise LLC, Jody Smiley Landscaping LLC, and Signature Lawns out of Allenhurst, Georgia. Those were the 3 lowest bidders. They varied in range. The highest was Elite Southern, $28,050 for 17 cuts. That means they were cut multiple times throughout the summer and fall. Jody Smiley Landscaping came in with a bid for 17 cuts of $17,000. And the third candidate finalist was Signature Lawns, and they had a total bid of $14,994. Those were the 3 bids, and it is my recommendation that Signature Lawns be the company that's awarded the contract.
Question comes to mind, Mr. Brown. Raymond, you were in, before your transitioning here. Last year when we had all that rain, did we have to have any extra cuts? Are extra cuts built into this?
No, that is
No.
not, the extra cuts are not built into that. That
Yeah.
would probably be something that we would have to add on.
Yeah.
As far as that.
I'm not sure, did we need extra cuts? Remember last year we had rain.
Yes, sir, I'm not sure. I can't answer that question.
Yeah, I just wondering how we,
Probably depend on how much the grass is growing and
Yeah.
how soon you can get to it to
Yeah.
cut it.
yeah,
But extra cuts are not added in. to
this
that
is
process.
17 cuts, okay.
What's the 17 cuts? That's from, what are we talking about, from April to about October, March, April,
Yeah, it's from April to November, I think it was.
to November?
October.
Okay.
And you're comfortable with Signature? I mean, that's your
They have had,
recommendation, but
they have had a bid, they have won the contract before. I was told that they were chosen a few years ago. They
Okay.
won the contract a few years ago.
So their work's been,
Their work's
Well.
been approved. They had the former director as a, I think as a referenced.
Really?
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Joey, I don't know if I mentioned this to you. I know I had mentioned it to Commissioner Walden. These bids, they seem to come up every year. Is this the terms of the contract? I mean, is this a 1 year?
1 year.
We'll do it every year?
It's been a yearly
Is
contract.
that,
so far.
maybe we need to consider doing maybe a 3 or 5 year? And let's say if it was a multi-year contract, let's say a 5-year contract, let's say 3 years. And based on performance and everything, I mean, you should have wording in the contract for a termination for convenience clause, like most contracts have. But let's say if you had a 3-year contract and say 90 days out, he would submit, his cost for the following year. Now, and the reason I said that, this time last year, gas was
$2.
yeah, $2.50 a gallon. Now it's $5.50 a gallon, or whatever it is. But all that would be considered 90 days out before mowing season, before April 1st. Say he'd start the first of the year and say, hey, this year here's my cost. And I think if we did that, we won't have to go through this proposal process every year. We get us a good contractor, and we work with him, let he submit his price, let's say 90 days out, and we negotiate it with it. Now, and if we can't negotiate with it, then we can put it back out. But I just think that to have to come with mowing to discuss that every year, I think it's probably something that could be done a little different. That's just my thought.
If that's what y'all want, sure, we can. There
That would actually
are
help.
several ways to do it. It would allow a contractor to, if he was gonna make an investment in equipment, to know that, not just on this contract, but others, that he can make that investment.
I mean, I'm quite sure, I talked with my representative from the rec board, and I ran that by him. I don't know if he's discussed it with the other board members. I mean, of course, they would have to be involved in it, but I just think that would be.
It was discussed.
It was?
In the rec board meetings about possibly extending the contract.
Yeah.
Instead of a 1-year deal to a 2-year deal
Yeah.
or a 3-year deal,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, we'll look at, the only thing you got to be careful of in the government setting is how you do that contract, and you can't just extend the contract because it was put out for bid originally. So if you're doing a service, you've got to bid it, unless you do a bid for a 3-year period.
Yeah, well,
Taking it one
yeah,
time.
I
And
mean,
then- Yeah, then you'd have an escalator. I mean, it'd actually be kind of like the audit, where we bid that for a 3-year period, and they
Right.
could show a potential price for year 2, year 3. You would award it for that, subject to certain conditions, like price escalations in gasoline, whatever it may be, and then you could consider an adjustment on that second year.
yeah, I wasn't thinking about giving it to him for the next 3 years, but I'm saying, like, this time next year, when we put it out, we put it out for a longer term. I just think that'd probably be good.
Yes, sir. We will restructure that.
On this bid, Mr. Gross, you say you confident that he can do the work, because I know in the past that you've had bidders that's cut grass and they weren't able to get to it because the grass got too high. So the county, the rec department had to go in there and cut it.
Right.
So let's don't let that happen. If they're not able
I
to,
assure you that won't happen, because I don't have a personal relationship with any of the folk that
Well, right.
were, as far as bidders go, but I will assure you that the grass won't get too high, and the person that has the contract will make sure that they get the job done.
Okay?
Chair entertain a motion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the proposal for the recreation mowing with signature lines for $14,994 for 1 year.
Second.
Motion is second, we approve the bid as presented by Mr. Gross. Any further discussion? There be none, all in favor, raise your right hand, please. All right, signature lines has been awarded the bid, sir.
Thank you.
I'm against that vote there, Mr. Chairman, so you didn't ask if there's anybody against it, but I'm against it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah. All right, sir.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
All right.
And Raymond, if you would, just at the next board meeting, get with Joey or whatever, and let's look at doing that for next year if the board agrees. I just think it'd just be good business to do that.
I'm sorry, I thought it was all in favor, I apologize. New Republican representative elections.
Yes, sir. We received what I put in your packet is an email from Mr. Alan Preble, who is the chairman of the Liberty County Republican Party. The representative to that Board of Elections, Mr. Alex A.R.P.A, resigned. And so they have made a recommendation. He's made a recommendation on behalf of the Republican Party that Mr. Greg McDougall take that place. The board's position in this, the commission, is really just a acknowledgement of acceptance of this. It doesn't have a right to approve or disapprove it. It's an automatic appointment by each party, if you remember. So the board just needs to acknowledge receipt of that for the minutes of the meeting, sir.
Okay.
But so, Joey, you saying that there's no application like the other board appointments or
No,
nothing
this is
like that?
an
Just-
automatic appointment, one by the Democratic, one by the Republican Party.
And it could be anybody?
It can be anybody that.
Anybody that lives in Liberty County or anybody that lives in the world?
They have their criteria.
Yes, sir, I haven't dug into their criteria, but I would feel sure they've got to live in Liberty County.
Yeah, I would say so.
I know. I don't know about the registered voter side, but I can check and find out.
Yeah. I've kind of heard a little bit. You got to be resident, got to be registered with that party and all that kind of stuff. Go through them. They have to bless it first, and then they send it forward.
Well, and again, they actually do the selection. They approve, they select the person. This board just has to acknowledge it has received their selection.
Okay.
So it can be.
Okay.
I guess Mr. Preble is their chairman?
It is, yes,
Republican
ma'am.
Party? Okay.
Chair, entertain a motion to acknowledge Mr. Greg McDougall as the Republican representative of the Board of Elections.
What we do, just nod our head?
Let's go ahead and officially
Yes, sir.
vote to make
If you
that a
could just
motion.
vote, yeah, if you could have a motion, a second to acknowledge receipt.
Yeah.
Well, and again, if that's all we have to do, that's fine, but I mean, we'd like to kind of know who we're acknowledging. I mean, there's nothing, well, I guess we don't need to do that. We just say yes.
Well, you really
Accept it.
don't have any say in it. I mean, we could really, if you don't feel comfortable, we could just write a letter and say, we're in receipt of your letter.
Yeah.
I mean, that would suffice.
It's been the same process from previous years. We just acknowledge whomever named either party has sent.
30 years.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
either.
well, but
either
always
party.
thought, but in those cases, we kind of knew who it was, though, didn't we?
No, sir,
Roger
not really.
Joey.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, Roger Wells was the.
I'm for it. I just thought that, you know, for it to come before us, that we needed just a little bit more than say good.
Yeah, just notifying us who they
Okay.
represent.
Basically notification to the Board of Commissioners. I'll make a note in the minutes that we noted receipt of the letter.
Okay.
Or maybe even next time have their chairperson come to present the name to us.
I don't think he was able. I'm not sure, but yes, sir, we can definitely ask that.
All right. All right. Motion's died. It's been a long time. I gotta have a new motion.
Do we need a motion? Or just acknowledge?
If the board wants to, I can acknowledge the minutes that the board was presented, acknowledge receipt of the.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
That'll work for us.
What we got?
Cardry and Associates wage survey. Joe and Miss Laura.
Chairman, members of the board, leadership guru John Maxwell talks a lot about what do I want to do, and he says, I want to add value to people's lives. And there were members of this commission that wanted to do something about the lowest paying employees for Liberty County. They wanted to add value. And so we started this living wage study based upon that desire to add value. There was a notion of two things. One, to ensure that all county employees receive a minimum income necessary to meet their basic needs. And secondarily, to pay competitive wages to recruit and retain the best employees.
So Joey and Joseph and I,
Can you pull the mic to you a little bit?
okay. Joseph, Joey, and I conferred with Cardry and Associates, who is a personnel firm. They've done our compensation plan. Well, Dr. Cardry of Cardry and Associates has worked on past compensation studies. And we contacted them to review our current pay plan and identify the lowest paid positions that aren't up to that living wage level, and they made some recommendations. And he urged us to think not of just the $15 an hour, but looking at the annual salary of $31,200, because we're talking about full-time employees working 2,080 hours in a year. Also, looking at the living wage and making just the bottom adjustments, think of that as part A of a two-part project, because Cardry and Associates emphasized that making these adjustments in the short term would then create compression and equity issues for the rest of the people on the pay plan, that we can address that in a Part B study later this year. Okay, so we used Cardry's recommendations of what positions and pay grades needed to be adjusted, and we put those employees on the pay scale at their next closest grade above $15. And then we calculated the cost of doing so to move everybody up to the annual $31,200. Okay.
Excuse me, the 31,200 is just salary only, no benefits, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Just taking $15 an hour times 2,080
28.
hours in a year.
28.
That's what I thought, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Right.
So there are 5 main departments that are affected by this living wage study: animal services, building maintenance, public works, recreation, and the tax commissioner's office. There were a total of 23 employees who we would need to move to this living wage level. The cost of doing that annually is $54,419, but if we look at implementing it just for the rest of this fiscal year, it came to $12,558. And that is what we recommend to do.
Again, a good question and a point, the 54 is obviously without benefits. That's not the total cost. So benefits would need to be added to that.
Okay.
But the 12,558? No, well, that's for just
That's
the rest of.
That would be if you implemented it on the very next payday, and that would just be the cost for this remaining fiscal year.
From now
But
to the
that's with no additional
June
benefit.
That's correct, yes, sir, that's correct.
Right.
Okay.
From
to
now to
June 30th.
June
Yes, sir.
30th.
And the 54, Joey, that everybody's, I mean, some people will have in that health insurance, or, life insurance added to that, or,
Yes, sir, it would be retirement, FICA, health, and life.
but some of them that elect to not have the life.
No, so they all get the life. Some may or may, and I haven't looked at each one. I think probably all of these have health insurance. But there are a few employees that because of problems on a secondary health carrier, they don't have health insurance. But I'm not sure that any of these, but most of them would have health insurance.
So it'll be pretty much the same across the board then, all right.
Yes, sir.
And,
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I lost my train of thought. Hold on. I'm getting older. 2 days. Let me see. So, with that, moving them out on the scale, is that what we did? So, when, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Does that mean that we need to look at other employees that may be about to move out on the scale?
Part B.
Or are about at the $15?
Part B that she mentioned.
That would be
earlier.
Part B?
Part B in terms of dealing with the issues of compression and pay.
So when will we look at those? Just whenever we,
But the county administrator's gonna discuss that with you guys at.
Well,
At-
we've
at our,
actually got a
planning session?
we've actually got a contract to consider as part of the budget. We're submitting in our administrative budget to try to fund that, if that's okay.
okay.
So plan to go ahead and try to address that in
You
July.
know, if we're gonna move them out, and I think that's a good thing, we need to do that to prove
Right.
that. But I wanna make sure that those that are maybe right about there are being looked at.
Well, yeah, because obviously what happens, he mentions that compression, if you remember. So what this is going to do for a period of time until you do that other work is it is going to bring some folks up to pretty close to what some folks are making that have been there for a longer period of
Right,
time.
right.
Yeah.
And those folks, and that's gonna,
That
That
compression,
create
that
a,
compression needs to be adjusted.
compression's gonna kick in.
Yes, sir.
Just
Okay, if
for
we're gonna-
curiosity there, what is your number there for FICA health insurance? Kim, you got it?
If they're getting health insurance is already in your budget, so health insurance would not be impacted.
right.
That's correct.
Right.
Or life.
Their retirement.
Just the retirement and
will be
FICA.
Based on what they contribute.
Participation.
So we match, they're required to contribute 2.5%, and we match that 2.5%, and then we match another 0.5%, 0.5% for every full percent that they contribute, up to a total of 5% for the county contribution. So
Put that in layman's terms.
So 2.5,
2.5.
I mean, you can calculate the FICA is just 0.0765
Right.
times that number.
Right.
But again, and then if the basic retirement would just be 0.025 times that number. That would be the basic.
See?
Right.
My question is,
2.5.
because you mentioned the annual amount. So is this only for full-time employees who don't make $15 an hour? And so part-time employees would still make less than 15? Because they're not really, they're not full-time making a living wage at that job?
correct. For the purposes of this, yes.
Okay, so it's 23 full-time employees, and did that include any vacancies that might be right now for positions under 15?
No. I will say there are 2 part-time positions included actually because they have an equivalent full-time version of that. They're doing the exact same job, but they're part-time. And so to keep those equal, we're also raising those. Because the exact same job description, and you don't want them to be paid at two different rates. But no, we didn't include vacancies.
So how many part-time
I didn't understand that.
positions there are that you know of that's going to be under the $15 radar screen?
Well, let me try. So it does include part-time positions if they're regularly scheduled part-time positions and they are not seasonal in nature. So really, the folks that we're talking about that aren't not part of this would be recreation aides that are hired for seasonal activities, i.e. scorekeepers and things like that. And then also election folks, because they're special project, special mission people. So it's special mission people, seasonal people. Those are the only, there are part-time people that are regularly scheduled out there that are affected by this. That's correct.
Okay. Actually, I'm looking at some of the part-time firefighters.
Right. I understand. And most of those folks, 75% of those folks are working a full-time wage somewhere else. So, but again, let me back up. If they come in here, they're going to get, those folks are going to be included because they are looked at on a regular scheduled basis that we schedule them for. Okay, it's not like they pick and choose what nights to work and some of that. So they're on a regular schedule. So yes, they would be impacted. So it's a very small group that's not impacted. Again, it's the seasonal people.
But those people aren't in the 54.
Yeah,
There's
and-
23 employees in the 54, right? Okay.
Yeah. Well,
So,
it's,
to answer your question about the extra FICA and retirement, just the base retirement and the FICA would be in another $5,524. That's not.
5,005.
Okay. So you're looking at basically an annual cost for those 23 employees of about $60,000 for just those 23 employees.
And vacancies.
No, she said there weren't vacancies.
Okay, just double checking.
Yeah, they're
All
not
right, so,
different class.
question.
They don't work by the hour.
I don't know. This Dr. Cardry, I've heard that name before. Did he used to work for UGA?
Yes, he did.
So now he's in his own private?
Yes.
Doing the same thing. All right.
okay. So,
Let me mention that too a little bit, that question. Carl Vinson, they still do those surveys. They are short-staffed. They had some folks that left. We knew the timeliness of what was needed for y'all. And so that's the reason we reached back out to Cardry, who really took a lot of their people from them over time, and has been doing the business in various states, not just Georgia. So yes, sir. And he uses the same type of methodology, so it doesn't upset your pay plan.
All right, well, Chair?
All right. Chair, entertain a motion?
But before we get, this can be implemented when?
Now.
Immediately?
Yes.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Yesterday?
The next payday.
Sunday.
First pay period
I
in
just want to
April.
make sure that we're not looking at something 6 months down the road.
No, first pay period in April.
Right,
but
it
they
would
don't
start
say
with the
what
pay
year.
period this Sunday. That will they get paid in
It'll
April.
go into effect this Sunday.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we approve this study done by Dr. Cardry to upgrade the pay scale to employees up to $15 an hour starting, what date?
Sunday.
Sunday, March 20th.
Whatever you said.
Second, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you. Good discussion. Good job. Good work.
Commissioner Gillett.
And we'll look forward to the Part B.
Long time coming.
Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, thank the board for that. I think that's something that we talked about. And, when you think it's 2022, and when you think about the cost of everything, which includes the cost of living, and the fact that that we had the foresight to take on this task and to vote to have it done. I mean, you think of the young man that's going to graduate from Bradwell or Liberty High in a few months. That's not going to the military. that's not going off to college or technical school and just wants to have a job. And he can get an entry-level job here in Liberty County now and make a decent wage. And that's something that we could be proud of, and that's a good deal. I really believe it's a good deal, so.
Thank you, sir. I think
Thanks, everyone,
we all agree.
for supporting that.
We all agree. All right.
All right, next.
A.R.P.A funds, educational assistance. We've been getting some questions from the community about these funds, so I asked Mr. Brown if he would address us, update us, so we can.
Yes, sir, thank you. I know there have been several agencies interested in trying to acquire some funds to help with some of the things in the community, and it just so happened that some of those things may fit into what some of the board's directive was already. You remember in your A.R.P.A funding, you basically allocated $200,000 for educational assistance programs. And so what we've done in a short order, in fact, Mr. Mosley, thank you so much, is it has taken a draft of an application process that he got to me today. We're looking it over. Would provide that to you in April with a process outlined at your very next meeting to be able to draw down some of those funds, and we'll present that to y'all. So very quick kickstart there to have you something is in a process to look at for dissemination of those funds.
Mr. Brown, quick question, just for verification. We did say that there's no funds available for cleaning up a blight area in the county, correct?
Not under these funds, no, sir.
I know we've got a program here that's, I don't know who started it. I know Commissioner Gillard talked about it, and I know Commissioner Stevens and Commissioner Frazier is with the, the youth program. And I don't know how it's funded other than what we do, but, it would be nice that having people that could come out of that with some type of just a small scholarship that would help some of those, whether it's $100, and I know the chairman has been involved in a lot of scholarship programs, so may need his guidance, but I think since we ought to start looking in our house too before we start looking somewhere else. Not that everybody don't need it, but I think we ought to start looking at that. Our youth program needs some attention.
Good idea, maybe a way to incentivize some of
Thank you.
our youth, as long as we meet the criteria.
So we'll develop that for you and have that for you so you can consider it in April. Make a decision then or refine it. We'll take it back and tune it again and whatever y'all's desire is. So there are some monies right now designated, $100,000 under early learning and $100,000 under academic services. So, and again, what I want to do is make sure I bring the criteria from the National A.R.P.A Guide, because we have to do a reporting on these, on service and what they're used for. So we'll bring you the detailed chart that shows what code we'd have to use internal to those codes to be able to do that so that you can see. And we'll develop our guidelines for your recommendation.
When will you bring that to us, sir?
In April.
April?
Yes, sir.
Okay, first meeting in April, all right, because I have people who I need to notify that application window is approaching.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
All right. All right. Okay. So we just take this as information, all right, tonight. All right, administrative report.
I'll be real quick, sir. On the sheet that I laid in front of you, it's got some highlights on it. I won't hit everything on this sheet of our ongoing activities. But on the front, this starts with finances. I'll just mention the changes that were highlighted there. The ADP system is in final contract review with the attorney right now. We've met, satisfied internally that we can do that program with all the requirements. The countywide solid waste study presented to you tonight, obviously. Water system fee update, along with some ordinance review. We received that draft report yesterday, as a matter of fact, and so staff's reviewing that to be able to do a presentation for you on that. The 23 budgets are out to the departments with a deadline to come back, and you know that we have established some dates already to look over those. Living wage study, I'll change that status to complete. And then we'll go ahead and make a mark on the board budget pending to do the second half of that so that we can get the compression going. Ambulance procurement, 2 down, 1 to go. Two of them received this afternoon. Thank you all very much, and EMS is very proud of those. Those have to go through a certification process, so it'll be a few weeks before the state can come down and certify those, but EMS staff is doing what they need to do to get that going. To do that, there is one due to have the chassis received in June, and then there's about a 90-day upfit on the back of it, built 90 to 120 days on the build process on the box. So without any slippage, hopefully that other one's in here during this calendar year. Already going ahead and preparing specifications to get another one ordered because of delivery time on those chassis.
Mr. Brown, I have one question on that. Are we going to rewrap the green ones to this
We
new
are.
color scheme?
We haven't been able to because we hadn't had any extras. So now that when we get these on the road, we've already got a contract for rewrapping.
Good.
And we'll start pulling those off and rewrap with the new logos.
That was a shock. But it's okay.
Yes.
Looks good.
Yes. Yes. It's different.
It's different.
Lime green is gone.
Must have been Mr. Mosley.
The Liberty County Planning Board meeting here for y'all is April 7th of '22. We're going to hold it right here in this boardroom so that we can have things available that you might need. If we flip over the back, we are engaging is insurance renewal time, so we've engaged with our insurance provider, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, to give us some new rates. We hope to be able to meet and see those potential new rate structures. We reviewed the losses already, which we had some in this period. But the other thing we're doing is asking them to expand a look at family medical coverage and give y'all some options. We've heard you say that, and we wanted y'all to be able to have some options, and so that's the discussion we're having with them when we talk with them also. So we'll be bringing those to you.
Do you still have the insurance, what was it, insurance committee?
No, sir. I think one time we had a benefits committee.
A benefit?
Yes, sir.
committee?
Several
You
years
don't have
ago.
that anymore?
No, sir. Mm-mm.
I mean, is there a reason why not?
Not any particular reason why. You know, the matters involving insurance particularly, I think this year what we need to show that we haven't is to share the information on some losses without attributes to specific claimants so that you can see what drives those rates, because it's very particular, especially to a governmental entity to do that. But I deviate a little bit. No, sir, no particular reason other than just another step that, I mean, maybe we can discuss. It's whatever you want to do.
I think we talked about that. They all retired.
They might have.
Everybody, I mean, I think the
Benefits
last
got
one that was
good.
on it was Johnny Smiley, wasn't he?
Yes,
He's
sir.
gone.
That's
That's
correct.
been way back.
You ordered the EMS facility, great, and we'll go to work on that. The Joseph Miller Fire Station facility, we had three bidders on that project. Those are being analyzed now for MWBE compliance, and so we bring those back to you at your April meeting.
Okay.
Is when those are coming back. I will tell you that our project budget on that, anticipated project budget, was a little north of $10 million. Right now, the low bidder is about 8.7. So, and you do have some A.R.P.A money assigned to that project,
Yay,
which is good.
good news.
Well,
It is.
wait a minute now, we didn't cut nothing out of that, did we?
No, sir, we didn't cut anything out.
We didn't value engineer.
Cut anything.
Right, I know. I was
Don't
gonna say,
want that cut.
engineer.
The health department facility, we had a second meeting over square footage assignment for that with the staff. That went very well. So they're in the final programming and will go to design now on that. We'll be talking to y'all about that and about locations. Road department, same thing, doing the square footage assignments on that. And it will include the incorporation of mosquito control over into the public works compound. So we're making those adjustments. It was brought up in here. Actually, the proposal on Sam Harris Gym cleared the environmental review that we were waiting on from the state. And so those should be going out here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, really. We're ready to go ahead and put those on the street. So that's good news. The Exit 76 median work project, we're finalizing some plans for that pretty quickly based on some of the things that are coming around that interchange down there and being able to get access to those. And talked with the district engineer this morning from GDOT about that a little bit. And we'll be taking that plan to him since those access points are on the state route. We need to make sure we coordinate with that. US 84 connector project, the right-of-way acquisition is about 50% complete now. So it's holding tight to its schedule, Mr. Chairman, for a FY '24, which is actually July of '23 let date by the state, which is great.
Great.
Water system expansion, Trent will have some things to show y'all at your next meeting on that when he comes up. We did meet with some folks that have some thoughts of development in that area, so there are a couple of steps we're going to need to take on that water system on the west side. Is number one, we're going to have to amend our service delivery strategy to be able to show that as our water service area. So I'm working through that now with the maps and the applications. It'll mean that you have to adopt that change in that strategy. It'll also mean, because we have a combined service delivery strategy with the other cities, that they also will have to accept amendment to that. That'll be accompanied by a meeting with the Water Resource Council in that process for the Water Resource Council to bless it. So again, fast tracking all that. I expect that to be happening in the next 30 days.
Brown, can you also help to identify the overlay water, district water overlay for Riceboro area?
Yes,
So
sir.
that when we go down Lewis Frazier, we'll know exactly where we need to stop at. So if I'm talking to someone, I won't be talking to someone that can't come in the system.
Absolutely. One of those processes, you're going to have to adopt a map revision, and that's on the map revision. It shows a narrow corridor off of Lewis Frazier, but we may want to broaden that a little bit because there's unassigned area out there. Whether we deliver services to it now or not, it'll at least keep you from having to go through this process when you decide to deliver it.
Right.
And that'll be the best thing to do moving forward.
Joey, did we talk one time about wastewater, like a spray field or something, in that same area?
You didn't specifically talk about an area, but what you probably remembered that you did is in the A.R.P.A funds, you put money in A.R.P.A to go ahead and study countywide sewer delivery. And so, it's a large undertaking to even do that study, but we haven't moved on anything with that. But yes, sir, you've got some money sitting there to at least do a countywide survey of that.
Okay, yeah, I think we should.
We're getting there.
Yeah, water and sewer, yeah.
Getting
Water
there.
and sewer. Like peanut butter and jelly. Hand in hand.
The one that says industrial park across 95, how large is it?
I don't know how large it is, but I know they're talking about expanding it, dealing with wetlands and all those kind of things, but I'm not sure the size of it, but it won't be able to, I guess we could do some kind of look at working with the county.
Sure could, and when the Water Resource Council, local resource council was stood up years ago, they looked at water service delivery, but they didn't look at sewer delivery. So, and of course, all that's permitted through EPD though. So they'll ultimately decide, but that wouldn't be bad, is to develop a sewer delivery
Might not be a
map countywide too under water council.
Let's do it.
good concept.
Yeah.
No residential was even thought about in that, were they?
What we need to do too is, the other day dealing with the rezoning for the projects at Midway, potential projects, we ran into the fact that our comprehensive plan had those properties, especially on our highway, all designated as agricultural, and no thought about it being turned into something that's industrial or commercial. And I don't know what our thought processes were then, but certainly being right across from Tradeport East, I don't know why we didn't give consideration that property could very well have been. So we need to look at, I heard we can go back in and
We can.
revise the map, I heard.
Yeah, so well, to keep you too long here tonight, there's several things that trigger a redo in that comprehensive plan. Significant land change is one of those, or projected land change, and it may be, we really don't need to, we'll see how we can seamlessly put that together with this revision without slowing down the water part, because I really need to be under construction with that west side. I need to have it complete within about a year.
Okay.
That's very, very, very tight with everything we got to work through. But in order to meet some developmental demands, if we want to serve some customers that are coming, I got to have it there shortly after 12 months.
Okay. All right.
Joe, you hear that? You did a good job on that other part, so you're going to be able to finish this.
What's the temperature in here, Joey?
Man, like 30.
Anything else for the good of the
All
order?
right, sir.
Mr. Chair, just want to remind, what was it, Joey, May the 15th? I know it's a long ways off, but
Not so long.
Okay.
go ahead.
No, I had not heard.
No, I'm sorry. Oh, so I got something on you.
That's okay.
May the 15th, we will be honoring the Bradway Park in honor of a gentleman that we talked about at the commissioners' meeting here over 8 months ago. The plaque will be back, and we'll be hanging it up at the Bradway Park.
You don't have a time yet?
I'm gonna probably look at 3 o'clock.
Okay. All right, I'm sure we'll send us out reminders.
I was gonna say, keep us updated.
We'll publish, yes, sir, and we'll get some publicity on that also.
All right, okay. All right, sounds good in order. Chair, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All in favor?